Good morning, this is the Baraboo Buds bringing you another beautiful garden in Baraboo. Today it's the garden of Kathy Skrivseth, and she's going to show us her native plant gardens, and of course our other Baraboo Bud friend,
Kathy Calabrese. I'm really glad to be here with Pat this morning, and we're going to look at this gorgeous garden. How long have you lived here, Kathy?
We built the house in 2008. We moved here in October, moved into the house in October of 2008. And so starting out from scratch, we were able to do something completely different. Moving from Appleton, where we were completely enclosed by woods, and working with woodland species, it was nice to come here and seeing what is native to the area. And so then that's when got into prairie plants, and had a good landscaper that knew how to do a rain garden. So that's what we have right here. Prairie plants in a rain garden, similar to what's in front of the library and in front of the Methodist church and in front of the school. They all gave me inspiration in order to go on this venture. So
Well, you sure get plenty of sunlight here.
yes, there is a lot. And that is another thing. This is a half-acre lot. Not only do we get a lot of sunlight, but it's just a big lot. And I didn't want to be mowing that big lot. So there is a number of things that the prairie plants do. Is they're extremely drought tolerant, so I don't have to worry about watering them, or I don't have to worry about fertilizing them, or they're just really not high maintenance at all. So that was another reason for doing the prairie planting.
Now, you talked about not having to do a lawn, but you are standing on some lawn here.
I am. This was something that was recommended by Phil Score, who did put in the rain garden. He mentioned leaving a strip of grass so that the sidewalk wouldn't always have plantings falling on it or things washing into it, and it just gives that little bit of a break so pedestrians aren't right away encumbered with plants falling all over them. It's just a little more of a managed look, and a little bit, just that little bit of manicure before you get into something that people might not be quite used to. Mm-hmm. So it gives their eye a little pleasant way of introducing themselves to the plants. Yeah.
well, I think how you've interspersed the artwork in there, the ironwork. And
Yes.
the fact that you are planting in clumps, it's more organized visually as far as being able to read it and approach it.
Yes, I always refer to it as managed chaos. That there is a rhyme and reason to it, and one of the big things is height difference. Mm-hmm. So you start out low. There is this sedum here, which isn't a native. That's not a prairie plant, but I got a bunch of free sedum. But it adds some color and a lowness, and then behind that would be the Prairie Smoke. So that's a lower plant and something that blooms early in the season. Right now, blanket flower is our low plant that's blooming right now. Mm-hmm. The low grass, that is the Prairie Dropseed. So then as you keep on going in, then you get higher and higher. The Joe Pyeweed is tall. The big blue stem would be tall. We have, of course, there is the compass plant, which is tall. The there's a number of things that are in there. The Queen of the Prairie that's in there that is tall. Culver's root. So it gives your eye changing levels to work with. So yes, manage chaos.
Well, this is kind of as far as the color, this is kind of the crescendo for this garden, but like you say, you've planned from early spring on,
yes,
and then what happens in the winter?
In the winter, I used to not cut things down for insects and so forth, but what I found is that with so much seed, such a seed source, that things got to be too overgrown. So now I do, in the front here, I do kind of cut back. I leave certain things for height. It's more of a, I choose as I go along what remains and what goes, because I do leave some things for height, some things for interest, but I do remove a lot of the seed source because it's full. I don't want really any more. It's 12 years old now.
Right.
It's at full capacity. That is something that one has to be considerate of, is that what you start out with, this small, it does grow and it does fill in. And so you kind of have to keep that in mind too, as far as your plantings. This was all planted with plugs. There wasn't seeds that I planted, whereas in the back, in the prairie, in the small, in the short grass prairie and the tall grass prairie, that was all seed. These were all plugs, so I was able to place things in groupings and where I wanted them. But then again, that's because it is in the front. It's what people will see as they walk by. So I wanted a little bit more managed approach to the front.
So that's one thing about prairie plants. They may be a little harder to find, but like you're saying, they start out small, but when they're in the correct environment, which is the environment in Wisconsin, they really take off in a very short time.
Yes, they take off, and I've given many, many plants away. That I've dug up so many plants and divide them up and given them away. So sharing is caring. And as people get more used to working with natives, I think that people see the benefits. I have my little sign here, my monarch butterfly
I was
sign.
You to tell us
right
about
here.
that sign.
Yes, and I even have a chrysalis in back.
Oh, cool.
A monarch chrysalis that's just getting ready to come on out of the chrysalis. So, yes, so I'm a certified monarch butterfly garden here, and we have
from the North American Butterfly Association.
So you have to provide, there is a checklist of things as far as food source and et cetera, that you need to provide in order to be certified. It's not a very difficult process to go through, but it's more of an educational process. And that's why I got the sign, is just to let people know as they're walking by that you can do something other than lawn. And it doesn't take a whole lot. It's not difficult to do in order to provide different species that are native and that encourage the different insects that you want to see. And also the birds. We have a, I don't know if you can see through there, but there is, we've just had a fledge of bluebirds, and every year I think they do come back. The same families do come back. That we usually get 2 fledgings a year, and the first fledging was in the back. We have a bluebird house in the back, and then the second one is in the front. So it provides not only for the butterflies, but also for the different species of birds that we want to attract.
Yeah, that's the really big bonus to the native gardens, is all the native bees and pollinators are drawn to it, the native birds. It's lovely for the gardener and also just for the ecology of the area, that there's food sources for the plants and animals that we want to sustain.
Yeah, as we've stood here, I've noticed bees and butterflies already.
Yes. And I think we had mentioned that it's a rain garden. It's not just
So where's the rain in here? Let's see.
The rain, actually, there's a downspout there that collects for this side of the house, and there's a downspout there that collects for this side of the house, and it channels underneath. And I will walk in, I'll show you that there is a dip down in here, and you can see how now I'm going down. So.
Oh, yes.
Whoa! That's how tall the plants are.
So this is how tall the plants are, and you can see they're over my head. Yes. So that's when we get, and as you've noticed, when we get rainstorms, it just seems to be more and more rain at once.
Exactly.
So instead of the rainwater washing off, it collects there and has a chance to filter down and percolate through the soil.
Does that have a lining of some sort with the soils that you use? No?
There is no lining. He did not a synthetic lining. he did do a heavier soil
Uh-huh.
Okay.
underneath in order to, and so that, yeah, that is underneath there.
And then is it lined with rock or
No,
just soil?
no,
Okay.
soil. It's just soil. And even that looks, you would think, oh, well, how does that look when there's no flowering? But it really is rather interesting looking. You can make anything interesting looking, and I don't know if you can see, probably not very much, but there's different, I do have different iron pieces in there. There's the butterflies, I've got a couple iron flowers, I've got some rock piles that I have in there, so that there's a little bit of interest any season of the year.
Well, even as you talked in the winter, when you groom it for winter, you know, you make aesthetic choices on
Aesthetic
what
choices, yes.
you know, what grouping of the dry grass looks best. What do I want to have here? So it's not just scalping
It's
it.
not scalping, no.
It's more of a sculptural
It,
approach
exactly.
in the
I like
winter
that.
time.
Sculptural. That's very nice. Yes.
Well, here we are now on the back of the rain garden up by the house, and we were seeing how the height of the native plants make like a little privacy area here for Kathy.
Yes, as we're sitting either having a cup of coffee in the morning or a glass of wine or evening, we can't even see people as they're walking along the sidewalk because everything is grown up so much, and it kind of gives us a little, not only is it visually nice to look at, but it gives us a little privacy then too. I have an affinity for rock. My background is actually as a soil scientist. And so I love different stones from different areas. And it also gives meaning. I had mentioned that I have a sandstone that is from the farm, an hour and a half north of here that I grew up. So I've added that to it. I've added pieces from the farm as far as just they were random iron pieces that were, they have a nice rustic look to it. Where we lived before was in Appleton, and that is along the Niagara Escarpment, and that is this Chilton limestone then. That we use that for our landscaping and doing the retaining walls, because we have a number of levels here that we are working with, and rather than just using cement block, we decided to use stone from where we used to be. So we have a little bit of memory of all sorts of places that I used to live and brought it here, and trying to incorporate it now with what is native and what is natural here. That's what the thought process was.
Well, we're really seeing from talking to other, you know, long-term gardeners that whole thing is just part of their life. I mean, they are in the garden. All the little pieces express their history, their likes, other family members, donations from friends. So it's really an important thing to the gardener beyond the flowers themselves.
I agree with you. It's there's been so many plants that I've gotten from friends or relatives, and I think of them when I am gardening. I think of those people that, oh, this person gave me that, and isn't it doing well? And then I in turn pass it on to others. That it just keeps on giving. So it is a not just an aesthetic thing, but it has a meaning too, as far as your own history and what other people have brought to your table, and hopefully you can give to others then too.
One thing I've noticed is you have such a busy and colorful front, and then over here by the house, not to take away from all that, it's more simple colors and
simple.
Yeah.
And that is a good point, because when thinking about spacing of things, I had a lot more things in here that I took out because it got to be too busy and too complex, and I wanted it a little more simple and calm, because you can't always have complex. You need to be able to just relax a little bit too. So more isn't always better. And I've learned that through time. I mean, I've been doing this for 12 years here, And it keeps on evolving, it keeps on changing, because what you start out with isn't what you end up with. Things grow up, things die, things are just not right anymore. So you do have to adjust too. And but yes, I do like that you pointed that out. Sometimes simple is not a bad thing too. It gives your eye a rest. When you're trying to look too many places, and it's too busy, it's not restful. And I just need to really pare down sometimes.
Yeah, gardeners need to sit one place where they can't see anything that needs to be done right now.
Good point.
Yes.
Well, you talked about sharing, and that's one thing we are trying to achieve with this program is have other gardeners in town, sharing with each other, and even sending in pictures of their gardens to the library to be posted also.
Yes. To Joan at baraboopubliclibrary.org.
Yay! Okay, let's go to the backyard. Well, so here we are now in Kathy's backyard. There's a lot of grass back here, Kathy, as far as play area and that eye resting area like you were talking about, because your borders are just exploding with texture and colors. It's beautiful.
No, thank you. Thank you. We did want some space that we wanted to play croquet or do just fun things. There's a little sledding hill that when the grandchildren come, we like to sled down the hill. And they also, in the summertime, it's always fun to put some sort of a plastic down and a hose and
Good slip and slide, right? Yeah.
But then it is, like I said, it's a half an acre, and I didn't want to mow that much land. And so what we did was we put the short grass prairie in on, this would be a south-facing slope. And this is drier right here. So we were picking out species that would tolerate the dryness. So right now, a lot of the flowers are on their downward trend as far as color. This always pops up first because it is a south-facing slope, so we'll get the purple prairie clover and the coreopsis and just the monarda, everything just beautiful and in bloom. But now it's the grasses that are starting to take over, and that has its own subtle beauty. The prairie dropseed, a shorter grass, and we have the little blue stem is the shorter prairie grass. There's a couple of Indian grasses which are taller, but that's okay. You can hang out there with the short grass. That's all right. And then we, in order to give a little bit of a privacy, just a little bit of a segmenting off from the lot next door, we put up trellises for putting in grapes. We have a number of grapes started for our trellises. And when you're doing something like this, where you have a larger area, you have to think about structurally what you put in that won't get lost. So artwork needs to be big. Otherwise, it will be insignificant and you won't see it. So these are two sunflowers that are hay rakes. They're old hay rakes from the farm that I grew up on. And the tines, after a while, they give way. So I dismantled a couple of the old hay rake wheels and cobbled together and spray painted them. So some sunflowers right there. And I actually got that idea from, there was that, what is it, the Blooms for Blossoms? I can't remember. Yeah. The lady that would do it for charity, that she had them in her garden. I thought, oh, what a fantastic idea. And so then I got these from the farm that I grew up. And over in the back, further in the back, is the tall grass prairie, which you probably can't, I don't know if you can see that from your point right there. But that now would have the big blue stem, and that would have more of the taller species, the common milkweed I have back there, and more compass plant, and more of the sunflowers, the gray-headed coneflower, the purple coneflower, the western sunflower. So the taller growing species are in the back prairie.
Well, we'll need to go back and see those up close. Kathy, one thing I really like about this setting is you're kind of like on top of the world here. I like this subdivision for walking because the sky up here is just so clear because it's a newer subdivision. There's nothing blocking your view, and to watch the storms come up, it just kind of gives you that sense of power that you feel when you're out in the prairie or in an open,
yes,
rather than wooded area, in an open area.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because coming from living in the woods for 25 years where you couldn't see the sky, and then coming here to watch the storm, I love watching a good storm. I love the sunset, and I love the sunrises in the morning, and there is no light pollution going this way. Baraboo is that way to the west. So to the east, it's all farm fields or it's woods. So the persid, the different meteors, the shower, the meteor shower, it was nice just sitting out on the deck and being able to see it. And then, of course, the fireflies are so bountiful back here. Just really, really bountiful. They enjoy the prairie, too.
I think we all do at this point. If we didn't before, we're certainly converts now.
Yeah. But you're right. It is. It's pleasing and restful. You know, I don't do a whole lot of annuals because I don't like to water, and so. But I do zinnias because butterflies like zinnias too, and I do marigolds. I do a couple of annuals just for that pop of continual color.
Well, I'm not trying to be disparaging of annuals because certainly,
annuals have their place. A smaller lot,
right.
Yes. And another point well taken is that so many decisions are based upon your lot that you can. Ours was such a large lot that there's no way I could keep up with annuals everywhere. So I had to think, what can I keep up with? I think that is an important tool for someone planning, is what is it that you can maintain?
Right.
It's wonderful to have that idea, but if you can't maintain it, the simplest garden can look very shabby after a while. So it's thinking, what is the most fitting for your lot? What is most fitting for your lifestyle as far as maintenance? So you really kind of have to consider those.
And this looks like a path.
You know, deer do make their way. Every year we seem to have a fawn birthed in the prairie. Here's our other bluebird house that we had a successful. Every year there's we get at least 2 fledglings of bluebirds. So
It's exciting.
yeah, it is. It is exciting. Right here you can see there's the big blue stem. And further down is the Indian grass. So anything short would probably not handle the competition against the tall grass. So that's why we kind of had 2 different zones. The drier south-facing was the short grass. And then now we have the taller plants, the tall grass prairie. So, and it's interesting. Provides a different interest, and they bloom different times of the year then too. So this is this tends to be a little later. So we have a number of the species that I had mentioned that were in the rain garden are back here, and seed source when I harvest the plants in the fall. A lot of times I'll just bring them back here and just sprinkle in an area that I might want to encourage something else to go. But
Now the perennials won't bloom the first year, right?
correct. It takes a number of years for prairie plants. They'll establish their root systems first before they start sending up. So even though, and this is all done from seed. The short grass and the tall grass prairie.
Goodness.
This is all from seed.
Well, that's impressive.
So now so from seed especially, it takes some time before you really get to this point. And another important thing, see, like right now I'm harvesting. I just do it automatically. And the smell is just so good too. I'm sorry you can't partake in the smell of it, but the smell is just so, so good too. But people also have to realize if you're starting from seed, you have to prepare the site as far as getting rid of any weeds that would be there. And you have to be a little draconian about it in order for the prairie seed then to get established. So it is good. Having proper site preparation is important for especially starting out.
Okay, so you need good soil, sun, and patience.
You need, well, it doesn't have to be good soil because that right there was fairly sandy. What it needs is good site preparation as far as eliminating what the competition would be. So we didn't plant the prairie right away. We let this grow up in whatever was there from the farmer's field and so forth. And then we segmented off an area, and you can use different methods of killing what is there. You can use black plastic in order to let the heat kill it over time. We used application of Roundup in order to kill. We let the weeds germinate, and then we killed it before we did our planting of the prairie. So it's important to do a good site preparation.
So how do you keep the invasives from coming back, the non-native plants?
The non-native plants? We did go through, and things like thistle, I would wait until they got to the flowering stage and then pull it, and it just knocks them right down. So we did keep an eye on things that, especially things like thistle, that would show its ugly head. And now there's so much competition from the prairie plants there. The prairie is there. So. And now, as when I had mentioned, I would cut in the front my plants and in the late fall, leaving certain ones for winter interest. Here we burn.
Okay.
We burn both the small and then the large prairie. Yeah, we burn it. We get our permit from the city, and Craig and I have our hoses out here and our rakes and all the and we alert the neighbors. And it's actually kind of a fun time.
Do you use like a blowtorch or something?
We just Craig has his little torch, and he just goes along. You start at the burns always go uphill. And so starts in the lower corner, and then just work our way slowly uphill, and it looks nice and neat.
Well, Kathy, thank you for sharing your garden with us today. It's just delightful to see how you can use the prairie in your home.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you've come. This is just so enjoyable.
It's really enjoyable for us too. We really appreciate your participating. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this. This is such a wonderful thing to share ideas and plants.
And maybe some seeds.
And some seed.